was talking about conventional agriculture. It's a way of doing agriculture that is also broader than just organic. Because with this way of agriculture, you don't plow the soil. You keep the soil covered. You keep it covered and with something they call mulch. Or you have a crop that is covering the soil, like in winter, that's called a cover crop. But do everything to make the soil covered, because that is a really important to understand. That is really important to cover the soil.
So this is what they are calling conventional
Conservation agriculture.
Conservation
Conservation agriculture is all about keeping the soil covered. So,
okay.
Because if you don't keep the soil covered, the sun will shine, on the soil. So the water in there will evaporate.
Yes.
Will not come into the plant. So this water is wasted. Also, the sunshine that is shining on the soil that is not covered is also wasted. The energy from the sun.
But the soil doesn't need the sun.
The soil itself doesn't need the sun.
Yeah.
But if you have a soil that's not covered and the sun is shining on there like straight on it, then you're not using the energy of the sun in an effective way.
Okay.
That is a reason why conservation agriculture is important, to keep the soil covered. Also because it's way better for the soil life. Because soil life, like the earthworms and all the microbiology that lives in there, they like it when it's a bit moist. When the sun is just shining on the soil, and then the soil life in there is also like and dry out.
Yeah.
So it's to keep the soil moist. Also, when you keep it covered with an organic material, you give like food, to the soil life, because they eat organic material.
At the same time, the organic material cover them.
Yeah, they cover, but they're also feed for the soil life. Yeah. So there's differences in covers. Like some are, of course, eaten up with the soil life at some point. You need to put more. Some stay really longer, and then, the soil life has to feed from other sources. So there's difference, but there's indeed this general idea that covering the soil is better. Also, not plowing the soil is better for the soil.
Why?
Because if you plow, then you like turn around the soil, and so then this earthworm that's like happily somewhere down is like suddenly on top, and there's again the sun and it's drying out, and also because the nutrients that were in the soil, when you plow it, the nutrients are like at the top, and they can also easily evaporate.
So the conservation agriculture, can you give to here soon? Can you give like tricky that can make short the understanding of conservation agriculture?
Summary?
Yeah, the summary. Thank you.
Of conservation agriculture. Yeah. Okay, so that's not plowing the soil and keeping the soil covered all year. I think that's so too.
That's so, okay.
You can deeper.
So because.
But it's already broader than just organic agriculture, where you, broader. Okay. But I have to say, sometimes conservation agriculture is not used organic. Because if you don't plow the soil, you have many more weeds that will grow. So sometimes farmers that use conservation agriculture then use pesticides to get rid of those weeds. So that's really a trade-off there, where the organic farmers really want to go for using no pesticides at all, and then they plow the soil to get rid of the weeds, and then the conservation agriculture people are like, no, we should keep the soil covered, and then they use pesticides sometimes. So there's always a bit of a trade-off, where you go for really depends on place and context. But I think also conservation agriculture is really interesting and can help feed the world. Yeah.
Wow. Always good to know. Do you want to talk about some specific subject that you willing to share with us?
Well, so I discussed about this unsavory livestock management. Then I talked about conservation agriculture with the crops. But I think what also really new and great idea is to use trees in agriculture, in food
Agroforestry.
forests and agroforestry. I think these topics are also really interesting and can also have a potential to feed lots of the world, and are also broader than just organic.
It's very interesting. Can you go deep in that way to explain why you think that it's a really great idea to use that kind of practice?
Yeah.
So to meet our reality.
Yeah. So there are also different ways of using trees in agriculture. There's in short like the food forest. There is the silvopasture they call, and the alley cropping. So one is like to make it easy, like only trees and tree crops, mostly just to focus really on the tree crops. Then the silvopasture is together with animals, and the alley cropping is together with crops. So with annual crops, over 1 year. So
before you go in a deep way, I want to use this opportunity to tell all people that they are watching this podcast. We are a partner. We are going in the end of 2025 December to plant 250 million trees. 250 million trees, and we are still looking for projects for people that have project to plant the tree. So if you have a project to plant the tree, we are open. We are open to collaborate with you. So feel free to connect with us. Then yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great project you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly what you are explaining now. So we use it to
using trees. I think it's really smart to use in a food forest type of way. You really try to imitate a forest. So, how is imitating a forest? So a forest has different layers. So there's like the top tree. It's like the tallest of all, standing above. Then there's like trees that are in the middle, like maybe two layers between them. And there's like the sort of shrubs. So there's like the small growing trees, and there are some herbs growing on the floor. That's the basic idea of a food forest, that you use all those different layers that are in a natural forest. But then you only use trees that have edible crops, edible fruits or nuts. And there are around the world many trees that have edible crops. But in a food forest, you really
you have many trees. You have like
use that.
sea butter trees. You have cashew nut trees. You have cacao trees. You have moringa trees.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trees that we can use in that way to solve climate change, to solve food security, climate immigration. In Africa, we have a lot of climate immigration, really, because most of the time, people think that the biggest immigration is out of the Africa. It's not true. When you look, in the deep way, you understand that the big immigration is inside Africa. So agroforestry is one of the solution, to solve that kind of challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And with like why it's beneficial to use trees in like food forest system or any other systems is that the trees, they have deep roots, so they can get water way deeper than other crops.
Exactly.
They also are perennial, so they grow for more years. So
they capture the carbon.
They capture carbon. In their bark, it's like all of carbon made. So indeed, and also if you use these different layers, you can make like of an angle of it. With the highest tree and then smaller one, smaller one. So there's more sunlight that can shine on there that can be captured than when you just only have a flat surface.
Okay.
With only annual crops. So these are really advantages of using tree crops. So it's more sort of durable and it can handle more differences in drought and stuff.
I think it would be nice, maybe.
And you don't have any problems of weeds, if you do it in a correct way.
Yeah.
And it can also don't really have problems with fertilizers because it's also fertilizing itself. It's like a sort of self-sustaining ecosystem you're building with those trees.
Yeah, it's like it's a complete ecosystem.
Yeah, complete ecosystem. Yes. Yeah. The only disadvantage of the system is that it takes like around 10 years or so to become productive.
10 years.
Because it's trees, so they can't stay very long, but they first have to grow, and in this growing period, they need some extra water and they need some extra fertilizer to start because they're just all like children trees, baby trees. So that is really sort of the critical part of it. And also, if you talk economically, the investors, that it's only giving return 10 years later. That's quite long.
Depends also because I think this kind of project is not for all the investor. Yeah. It's more for the impact investor because the big impact investor always look they are always looking for a long term project, long term goal. Yeah. Goal. So agroforestry is most for the impact investor. Yeah, but for the other kind of investor, depend of their own planning. Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah, definitely. And with using trees, you can also combine that with crops, as I said, with animal crops.
Yeah.
And especially in Africa, I think that's beneficial because you can use trees that can store nitrogen from the atmosphere, and in that way bring the nitrogen into the system, and with that way fertilizing the soil. Because as I know, there's quite also some problem with fertilization in Africa, and if you just can get it from the air, that's great. That's really
good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So that's also really an advantage if you use that in combination with animal crops, and that's called alley cropping. And they use like lines of trees and then crops and then other lines of trees, and so in that way it can also.
Yes.
Right. So to come back on this deep and beautiful question that you ask, can we feed the whole world in an organic way? I think we discussed now some beautiful practices and way of doing agriculture that are not into the short definition of organic, but I think are definitely a way to farm in a way that helps to sustain this planet. So we have talked about livestock use in a holistic management way in brittle environments.
In brittle environment, yeah.
Where there's low rainfall. We've talked about conservation agriculture.
Yeah. So also organic farming.
Yeah, so I talked indeed what the definition is of organic farming.
Organic farming, yes.
With not using pesticides and inorganic fertilizers, but there's also for arable farming way more ways to do it with covering the soil, which is really important for the soil, and in that way also makes the soil more productive and also makes it the soil can be used longer. Yeah. So that soil deterioration is going slower. And that way we can also sustain feeding the whole world. And that's also a really important aspect to think about. Because we can think about only feeding the world at this moment, but we have to feed the world also in the future.
Yeah, in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was really nice, this conversation. And I have two things take my attention, and I'm sure also you, like the conservation agriculture. I think we have to plan, like we say, some series of conversation.
Yeah.
I think maybe the next one or the one after the next one can be about the conservation agriculture.
Yeah.
To go a little bit deep inside.
Yeah.
And to understand in holistic way where this kind of practice can be more useful, more efficient, in brutal environment or in normal environment. I don't know, in Chad, in Cameroon, in Netherlands, I don't know. So also about the agroforestry.
Yeah.
It was really nice when you start to explain exactly the process, how the organization of planting the different type of trees can 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 be really efficient to capture you say to capture the sun, to heal the soil, you know, that complete ecosystem. I'm sure that people of Dado Kingdom, the community really want to know deep in that agroforestry practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the next conversation, I think that this will be good for us,
Yeah.
and for the community to go deep in agroforestry and to really understand what is agroforestry. It's true that we already start, you know, to explain. You already start to explain. You already explain in the basic and good way, so even the children can listen and understand, because it's very important. So we have now to go for the next video, the next conversation, go in the deep way, what is really agroforestry in the biological way, all the biological process, you know, that why kind of practice can be really good. It's true that how you, like you say, it's long term. It's long term. It takes time to be normal. Like I say, is to solve a challenge. Is need a different type of approach of solution. And agroforestry is one of the solution, not the only solution, but it's one of the solution. It's really generational solution, I think, you know.
Yeah.
Because it take time to 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 be to really be a practical solution. But after that is for 1, 2, 3, 4 generation, and then we are looking for sustainable solution, not the fast solution only. You know, yeah. So we have to have the short goal and the long goal. So it's very nice. I really like personally. I really like this conversation, and then I hope that you too of that Jokinto community. I hope that also is my. I hope that you really like this conversation.
I definitely did. Yeah.
So
thank you very much,
Selma. I hope that maybe you will let me know your agenda, you know, so we can see how to organize that to continue to have this kind of conversation, you know, to share our knowledge, our ideas, what we think, you know, and to share a reference that people can also go to check, to go more deep. Maybe if you have a question, you know, just write on the comment or send her some mail, you know, with your own idea, or how do you think that we have to structure more better this kind of conversation. And if you too you want to share, you know, your own knowledge, just contact us. We can make it in three, you know, doesn't matter, or only two. It's not a big challenge. So we are open, share in the comment, share the video, and it's only together that we can have that positive impact. So I will let Selma to conclude, and then
yeah, thank you very much for this conversation. I think we have talked really interesting topics about the agriculture of the future, and yeah, we all hope that we can all feed the whole world, and yeah, that the planet will stay as beautiful as it is. Thank you very much.
What can you say at the end of this, that you think that after all this conversation is something that I want to start, you know, at the end of every conversation, I want to ask the guest how he can summarize, like summarize in one word. I don't know, the conversation. Like someone can say, okay, today, if let's say if after listening this conversation, what do you think that someone have to remember? Like, you know.
Yeah, I think to remember is that organic agriculture, we can view it a lot broader than only organic agriculture that we know.
Thank you very much, Selma.